Park Roy was a naughty boy at school, so teachers often punished him. Sometimes he had to hold a bucket of water on his head, but inside he was kind. There was another student named Junwon. He was rich and powerful, and he bullied other students. No one dared to stop him because his family was very influential. One day, Roy saw Junwon bullying someone. Roy felt it was wrong and stood up to stop him. His friend Sua warned him, "Don't touch him. If you make him angry, your family could be in danger." But Roy still stepped forward and spoke against Junwon. Junwon felt embarrassed in front of the class. To show his power, he challenged Roy to fight. Just as they were about to fight, the teacher came in. But Junwon ignored the teacher and kept bullying the other student. The teacher was afraid of Junwon's family and did nothing. Junwon kept provoking Roy until Roy lost control and hit him. Roy didn't know that this action would bring danger to his family. Roy's father worked for Junwon's father's company. The manager called Roy's father immediately. At the same time, the vice principal beat Roy with a stick. The principal even bowed to Junwon to apologize. Soon, Junwon's father arrived with Roy's father. Junwon's father looked calm and reasonable. Because Roy's father had worked many years, he didn't want Roy expelled or sent to prison. Roy's father felt grateful, but Junwon's father demanded Roy kneel and apologize. Roy refused. He said, "My father taught me never to lose my dignity." Junwon's father became angry, but Roy's father felt proud of his son. Junwon then gave his father a bad idea, and his father fired Roy's dad from his job. Roy felt very sad and guilty but couldn't do anything. Later, Roy and his father went to a tavern and talked. His father said he was happy Roy had grown up to be brave and honest. They drank together, not knowing more trouble was coming. The next day, the school announced Roy was expelled. Now his father had no job, and Roy had no school. Roy's father used all his savings to open a small restaurant. Sua often came there to eat. One day, another problem happened. Junwon also liked Sua and tried to flirt with her, but she liked Roy, so she ignored Junwon. Junwon was still angry at Roy's family. One night, Roy's father was delivering food on his motorbike. Junwon drove his car and hit him from behind. Roy's father fell off the mountain and died instantly. Roy lost the only family member he had, and he was filled with deep sadness. Roy loved his father very much and admired him. While Roy was still sad, the police came and said the criminal side wanted to make peace. Roy felt angry because they were treating his father's life like it was nothing. Sua picked up some papers from the ground and saw a photo of a car. She suddenly recognized it. The license plate number was the same as Junwon's car. She realized the police and the rich family had arranged for someone else to confess instead. Roy became furious and went to find Junwon that night. It was raining. He found Junwon in the hospital garden. When Junwon saw Roy, he became scared and fell down. Roy attacked him and beat him badly. His father meant everything to him, and Junwon had taken that away. Roy picked up a rock and was about to kill him. At that moment, Sua arrived with the police. The police pointed guns at Roy and ordered him to drop the rock or they would shoot. Roy didn't move. One officer loaded his gun and prepared to fire. Just then, Sua stepped in front and begged Roy to calm down. She told him his father would be sad if he saw him like this. Thinking about his father, Roy slowly calmed down and dropped the rock. The police arrested Roy. Later, Junwon's father came to see him and said he would forgive Roy if he knelt and apologized. Roy became angry and said, "The one who should kneel is your son." The man threatened Roy and promised to make his life miserable. The rich man knew Sua was Roy's close friend, so he called her to his house. He knew she didn't have enough money for school, so he tried to bribe her to testify for his son. She asked how much money he would give. The rich man laughed. Later, Junwon came and said he wanted to confess, but his father refused. He said his son must not have a criminal record because he would inherit everything. To make his son more cruel, the father took him to a farm and forced him to kill a chicken. He wanted his son to become ruthless. The next day was Roy's trial. The court sentenced him to 3 years in prison for manslaughter. In truth, the rich man had killed the fake witness and blamed Roy. One police officer knew the truth but couldn't say anything because his boss was bribed. On Roy's first day in prison, older prisoners forced him to kneel. Roy just laughed loudly, confusing them. In fact, the rich man had paid those prisoners to beat him. Sua came to visit Roy and saw his bruised face. She felt guilty and confessed that she betrayed him to get money for school. Roy didn't blame her at all. Before she left, he told her he really liked her and promised that when he got out of prison, he would find her. Sua hoped Roy would become very rich one day. After being released from prison and at least be able to take revenge on that tycoon, the two said goodbye to each other with a promise. Since then, Se has always remembered their feuding with the tycoon. 3 years passed so quickly. Today is the day Roy was released from prison. During his time in prison, he became friends with a famous gangster. This boss was extremely impressive for Roy. The first thing Roy did after being released from prison was to go to the pub for the last time to see his father. He promised his father that he would definitely take revenge. Roy first gathered all the information about the Jenga tycoon group, including the situation of his son Gain-won. Followed the address of the letter that Suez sent to Roy to a busy street called Itaewon. That day was also the day the street holds a festival. level, so it is extremely bustling. When Se Roy was still bewildered, Sua suddenly rushed to hug him. Sui was surprised and very happy beyond belief. She took Sui out for a drink. Sua said she would work at the company of Ganwan's family, but Seo did not blame her. He also said that he would work on an ocean ship for 7 years, because the two of them would have to be apart for 7 years, so Sua was a little sad. The next day Se Roy started work on the ocean liner. 7 years quickly passed like a breeze. Currently Sua is working for the Jenga conglomerate and is very successful. She is also highly respected by the chairman, only that Jan Ju has been flirting for 7 years and she still hasn't fallen, because Sua still loves Sui in her heart. After finishing work she quickly left the company and went to Itaewon Street, where she and Se Roy had made a promise 7 years after meeting again. Indeed, Sawi was here waiting for her. Sua looked at him with sparkling eyes. After many years of separation she did not expect that Kroy's idle words 7 years ago to open a restaurant had now come true. Kroy's restaurant name is Dan Bam. Today is the opening day, so everyone is extremely excited. Who would have thought that after sitting all day there would still be no customers in the shop? While the rental fee on Itaewon Street is extremely expensive, right next to it is Itaewon High School. This group of girls is bullying other girls. Unfortunately for them, they encountered stubborn girl Yeo. The girl brought out her phone to broadcast live online. The post immediately became hot, making her a celebrity, but because of this clip the other parent came to beat EO. But unexpectedly the scene had just been filmed by her friend. Yayo was truly the quintessence of evil. She scared that terrible mother so much that she couldn't speak. This woman waved her hand and tried to hit Yayo, was stopped by Se Roy. Unexpectedly Yayo took this opportunity to slap the mother back. Se Roy did not know what happened and chased Yayo, asked her to apologize. Yayo lied that my father died because of her. Wait until he gets up. She poked her head out the door and teased me that I was lying. You idiot. It turned out that Yeo had a stubborn personality just like Se Roy. She often made the principal angry but couldn't do anything about it. At the same time, at the corporation Yunga Ganon was presented a plan to open a drinking shop on Itaewon Street. Unexpectedly Sua objected. The president saw that the plan was unreasonable, so he tore up the paper and slapped him in the face because the Itaewon store has been losing money for 3 months. Immediately after that, handing over all the stores in Itaewon to Sua to manage, Ganon angrily found Sua and let out threats. Sue also stubbornly threatened back. She said, "Are you sure you will inherit, because the chairman has a son outside this son is Yeo's friend." Today Gunu and Yeo went to Yuan on a motorbike to play. Unexpectedly, because of the sudden braking to avoid people, ESO flew high. At this time Se Roy was handing out leaflets next to her. Seeing the danger, he quickly rushed to help ISO. However, when he looked at her face he suddenly remembered that she was a disobedient girl. The friend ran to inquire and was immediately hit in the head by ISO. At first Se Roy was about to say something to ISO but suddenly fainted and fell down. Then the two of them took Se Roy to the hospital because Sui was overworked. He fainted like that. At the same time, the president, knowing that Sui opened a restaurant in On, he ordered Sua to do something to harm Se Roy. This confused Sua because she had feelings for Se Roy, but money clouded Sua's conscience. Listened to the president. On this side, Se Roy woke up in the hospital due to overwork. Yell criticized leaflet advertising as outdated. She kindly showed him how to advertise on social networks to develop faster. Sui took note of the comments and said goodbye. That night Iko and her friend went to the busy Yunga restaurant to experience it. Indeed, there were many customers inside. When she went inside, Soa found that 2 people were under 18 years old, so she chased them back. So the 3 decided to go to Dan Bam on the opposite side. As soon as entered they met Se Roy. Because there were no customers, the wait, even though he knew they were underage, still agreed to let them in. Yeo sat down to eat and immediately knew that the restaurant had no customers because it looked too shabby. Meanwhile, Kroy went for a walk to learn how the restaurants attract customers. On the way he accidentally met Sua. He confided that for 2 months he didn't understand why the restaurant had no customers. When she arrived at the store, Sua realized that Yeo Group was not yet 18 years old, so she immediately called the police. Inside, Yeo's friend has a disrespectful attitude towards employees. Se Roy immediately defended and scolded the other guy. Need to be reasonable. That young man was in a drunken state and started insulting him. He even grabbed Southeast Roy's collar and wanted to hit Se Roy. Unexpectedly, when he punched Kroy, the employee rushed out to block him, then hit him again, causing the young man to lose consciousness. Finally, he took the boiling hot pot and poured it straight at his feet. It turned out that this employee was a thug. At this moment the police appeared. The police said someone reported there were minors here. As a result, they were all arrested and taken to the station. The normal penalty would be they were forced to close for 2 months. This made Squan angry and made a mess. At this moment Gen Won appeared to sponsor his younger brother according to the president's orders. He laughed like crazy when he saw Se Roy failed like this, and Se Roy was extremely angry. The police saw that this was the president's son, so they quickly ignored this matter. Unexpectedly S. Roy I prevented the police from ignoring this. He said that they should treat him like a guilty person and also asked why they let him go just because his family was rich. Se Roy didn't understand why the police were so afraid of the tycoon's child. After speaking, Se Roy stood up and left. ESO saw this and chased after him and said, "Had you lost your mind? Closing for 2 months would mean he would go bankrupt." Yeo criticized him for being too straightforward and didn't know how to bow his head, and Se Roy said that she was just someone who likes to destroy the two. Kept arguing for a while. At this time, Jonan came forward and deliberately brought up the story of how he harmed Se Roy's father in the past. He provoked Roy to attack him, but his past mistakes had taught him a lesson. Se Roy tried to be patient, but John Won was extremely arrogant. Roy announced that he would dig up the case of Jun Won stabbing his father to death. Roy said that, "I would definitely make you pay for your sins." Hearing this, June felt scared, and Yeo next to him began to have an interest in Se Roy. She was determined to do everything she could to help him get revenge. Because of the fight, Yeo and Gunna were punished for running around the school and at the same time had to write 100 reports of criticism, but Yeo did not write but only drew a picture of Croy. She was very impressed with Croy's style. Yeo immediately went online and started looking for all the information about the case. That year she passed by Croy's shop every day, even though it was closed. A week later it was New Year and everyone came together to celebrate the New Year. Yeo went into a bar to show off her ID card. She was 18 years old. Even though she was drinking with her friends, she was not happy at all because she only thought about Se Roy, the person who helped her that day. Other than him, she couldn't think of anything. On this side, Sai met Sa at a familiar shop. He didn't know that it was she who reported him to the police, causing him to be closed the restaurant for 2 months. Even almost he confessed his love to her after finishing drinking. Isel wanted to go home, but at this time a pervert who was drinking with her earlier chased after her and wanted to rape her. Iso firmly refused, but he still continued. Bothered, Eo immediately threw him a lump of money and chased him away. He felt insulted, so he immediately hit Eio. He continued to attack, causing Eio to struggle with him, but this made him angry and chasing after her. Iso had no choice but to run haphazardly into a small alley. She rushed into the men's restroom. Here she met Se again. Se Roy was shy, but Eso smiled. Just now this pervert came running. He tried to act calm and wanted to drag Iso to beat. He also lied that he was Eo's boyfriend, but Se Roy saw her injured face and knew something was wrong. This time Eo asked for Se Roy's help, so Se Roy immediately beat that bastard. Fought, then they both went out to run away. Coincidentally met Sua, who had just come, so all three of them ran together. Eo had never seen running away so much fun. After seeing that Sui cared about Io, Sua was very jealous. At this moment the two of them parted ways to go home. When Eo stopped, she wanted to invite him out for a drink to thank him for helping her just now. Eo said she would help Seoi promote his restaurant on her Instagram. While Seoi went to get water, the two girls who stayed behind had a very dramatic conversation. Sua arrogantly said Croy liked her 10 last year. Iso heard that and said that she liked Croy. The two of them criticized each other, causing the atmosphere to become extremely tense. Sua said that it was because of Yeo that Se Roy restaurant had to close unexpectedly. Yeo is extremely smart. She asks Sua in return if Sua told the police. The statement makes Sua suddenly guilty. Iso despised Sua because she dared to stab Se Roy in the back. Sua admitted what she did and challenged Yo. Sua said that no matter what she did, Se Roy would still like her. Wait until Se Roy got the water back. Soot told the truth and told the police because he thought Se Roy liked her, he would forgive her, but Se Roy said he felt a bit disappointed. Sua felt too embarrassed, so she took the initiative to leave. The two of them stayed to continue drinking together. Here Iso pointed out all the points that the restaurant needed to improve, from decoration to staff and menu, until Se was drunk and confided everything in his heart, which made Yi like him even more. After a while Se Roy stood up but was so drunk that she fell to the ground. Iso didn't understand. When she had loved him, she supported him and suddenly gave him a passionate kiss. Se Roy suddenly woke up in hospital. He didn't remember anything about last night's kiss. At this time Eso confided that she liked a guy to her mother. She said that he was in a difficult situation and had a grudge, but for some reason I was caught up in it and couldn't get out. Her mother quickly stopped her because she was afraid her daughter would suffer. Iso also wondered whether to continue or stop. She flipped a coin, and if it came up heads she would stop. Unexpectedly it was heads. Seeing this, Eso decided to consider it as a face down. She was so happy that she immediately ran to Southeast Roy's pub. As soon as she saw him, Iso fell in love with him. Eso decided to become the manager of restaurant to help him achieve his unfinished dream. Unexpectedly the tycoon's illegitimate son also came to work here. Jen Su is the child of a concubine, so he is often abused by Jenin the mother. Because of following her lover left Gunu behind, the angry president also kicked him out. For many years Junsu has lived like an orphan. He had to do everything to survive. Because he saw Se Roy's kindness, he wanted to came to work for him, so the whole restaurant had 5 people. Sean said that the small restaurant did not need a manager, but Yeo quickly pointed out the points that made made the restaurant fail, the first being the staff holding the food in their hands like this. Customers will feel dirty. The menu does not have typical dishes, making it difficult for customers to choose. The restaurant does not have a background for customers to check in. Moreover, the form of the dish does not look beautiful. After tasting a piece, just want to vomit out. After hearing this, Se Roy admired Yeo very much. He immediately made her the restaurant manager. He asked everyone to follow ISO's orders. At the same time, the president discovered the female director has bought a lot of shares in the corporation. At this rate, this person will become a major shareholder and can dethrone the chairman. The worried president quickly went to meet the female director and asked if she had any other ideas. Yeo here first had the wall demolished to increase the area. She used her design talent to redecorate the restaurant, and soon the space was very beautiful for everyone to check in and take photos. Soon the day the shop reopened, Yeo used social networks to promote the pub. Her Instagram was famous. So many people were interested thanks to her. Dan Bam pub was very crowded. There were even many people waiting in line outside. Although the staff were busy, everyone was happy. Sua saw that and was very angry, and Se Roy inside was extremely proud. Out of ISO just that day their revenue was more than 3 million won. The next day the president and Sua walked on Eton Street to survey the situation. He opened up that he wanted Sua to marry his son Joan Won, but Sua hated him so much that he did not respond to the president's words. He took this opportunity to lead Sua to the door of Dan Bam restaurant. Seeing that the restaurant was crowded, the president asked Sua to do something to vandalize this restaurant. A few days later the restaurant was still as crowded as the first day, but because the chef was on leave, Se Roy had to come in and cook instead. Work was still going smoothly. The next day customers suddenly complained that there was hair in the food. The table next to complained that the food was too bland. Chef Hai's work was negligent, making ISO extremely angry. She scolded the chef and said she had to work very focused. Then Yo wants him to fire Haiyan so that the restaurant doesn't close. Se Roy called the chef in to point out the problem, but he was kind so he didn't fire her and suddenly doubled Hai's salary. Se Roy wanted her to try hard to be worthy with the money she received. At the same time he gave a speech to strengthen everyone's spirit. Everyone should unite and strive together. Only Isa was a bit sad because Se Roy did not listen to her. The next morning ISO accidentally met a group of friends who were bullies. They came here and wanted to strip to humiliate ISO. Fortunately Gunu appeared in time. Through an argument with her classmates she admitted that she was the one who told the police to make them drink that day. ISO suddenly realized that he had mistakenly blamed Su Ah, so he slapped this friend. The other friend rushed forward and was also accidentally slapped. The other friend saw that she was scared so she quickly backed away. As expected, Yeo was as stubborn as Se Roy. In the following days Isel often came to check on Hai's dishes. Thanks to that Hyoni also improved her cooking skills. Se Roy successfully resolved the internal conflict and brought the restaurant up. At the same time at the pub Sua was sitting and remembering the president's words. He said which side Sua wanted to join. It was so painful that she drank herself until she was drunk. On the way home she accidentally met Se in his group. Seeing that this was a private matter, so everyone left. Only ISO stayed. Sua in a drunken state confessed all her feelings. Sua's sparkling eyes touched Se Roy's heart. The atmosphere suddenly became romantic. The two of them just went to kiss in front of Eo. When their lips were almost touching, Eo promptly used her hand to squeeze Sua's mouth and push her away. After all, she wanted Southeast Roy's lips to remain intact. Sua was embarrassed and immediately sobered, but because she wanted to tease Eo she kept asking to go eat with Southeast Roy's group. Se Roy couldn't refuse, so he agreed, which made the whole group's atmosphere extremely uncomfortable, especially for Yeo. Sua said that the reason Yunga Group is successful is because they operate in the form of a restaurant chain. Moreover, it was the president who created the recipe. That is why they are so successful. Immediately Se Roy immediately expressed his wish. He said he would turn Dan Bam restaurant into a larger franchise chain than Jonga Group. Hearing this everyone was extremely excited. The whole group raised a glass to realize this dream. After drinking, Sua and ISO had a dramatic conversation in the restroom. Again ISO said she had oppositional defiant disorder. She said she really liked Seoi. If anyone got in her way she would use any trick to destroy that person. Unexpectedly Sua was not inferior. She declared that if she liked the two would fight together to the end. On the other hand, at the office of the president of Jenga Group, Sua said that Jenga pub was very successful. They were so crowded because ISO's management heard that she has a record high IQ of 162. Sua also said that Se Roy wants to become a franchise restaurant chain. When the president heard that he was a little worried. He was afraid that Dan Bam will be a competitor to Jonga in the future. Dan Bam's side is getting more and more crowded. Eo plans to recruit more people to prepare to expand the restaurant. Instead of receiving a salary she will receive a 20% commission. Unfortunately Y's mother knew that she had dropped out of college to work at a bar and was extremely angry, but Yayo said that she already liked Se Roy and that she wanted to strive for success even if if she failed them. Mother and daughter could not find a common voice. ESO had to say goodbye to her mother, then picked up her backpack and left home. While she was sad on the bridge, Sroy ran past. He knew that her mother had kicked her out for dropping out of college to work with him. Sroy was very grateful. At the same time, he also felt sorry for her. He comforted Do in a very naive way, but that made Do feel much happier. The two of them made a promise to help the store reach the culinary peak, becoming a franchise chain surpassing Yunga Group. The two of them stood on the bridge talking about the future until dawn. Because the restaurant was growing more and more, it needed to recruit more staff. Unexpectedly, candidates came for interviews were all people who couldn't work. Later, a very pretty girl came to apply for a job. Seeing this girl, the employee and S.E. Roy were very happy. Seeing this, EO immediately refused to accept her, making the employee extremely disappointed. At the end of the interview, a black guy came to apply. His name was Tony and he was Polish Korean. EO thought it was okay, so he accepted the job immediately because he wanted Dan Bam Pub to grow stronger. Then he called the television station to ask for an interview, but unexpectedly they agreed to a recording session. When S.E. Roy received this news, he was extremely happy. He accidentally revealed this to SUA. The two went for a walk together and talked a lot. John Wan saw this and was very jealous. He went home to report what happened for Dad. The president knows that S.E. Roy is a person with more will than others. His corporation is very afraid of people like Seoi, so they made a plan to destroy S.E. Roy's Dan Bam restaurant. The next day, S.E. Roy went to the TV station to exchange the recording script. He suddenly met Gunnan, who was also there. He used his relationship to exclude Damam Pub from that recording. Seoi suddenly realized that SUA had revealing this. Gunnan said that he would make him fail, but S.E. Roy replied that he would cause his company to collapse because the recording session was cancelled. S.E. Roy was very sad. ISO was by his side, encouraging and comforting the two, then walked on the street and suddenly met SUA, but this time S.E. Roy coldly walked by, making her very sad. Unexpectedly, ISO then kindly told Seoi the truth. The person who called the police that day was not Sue. Upon hearing this, S.E. Roy immediately ran to find SUA to apologize. After running for a while, he saw her at the bus stop. S.E. Roy immediately took SUA's hand. He said that he would be determined to deal with the Jenga group soon so that she would not have to suffer. At this moment, the bus arrived. The two of them parted ways from here. After SUA left, S.E. Roy immediately called a mysterious person who was monitoring Yunga Group stocks. This person reported that S.E. Roy's shares were worth more than 10 billion won. S.E. Roy immediately ordered to buy all of Jenga's shares. Hearing this news, the assistant rushed to inform the president. S.E. Roy had bought a lot of Jenga's shares. It turned out S.E. Roy bought shares 8 years ago, which was also when Jeonju had a scandal that caused the shares to hit rock bottom at extremely low prices. Now S.E. Roy is the third largest shareholder of the Jenga Group. When he learned about this, the chairman was shocked. He laughed to the point of going crazy. He didn't expect S.E. Roy to be so good. President Jong immediately went to Dan Bam Pub to meet S.E. Roy. He thought Seoi was a chicken but turned out to be a fox. 8 years ago, he was using all of his father's insurance money to buy stocks from the person who murdered his father. Both faces proved extremely dangerous. However, S.E. Roy still welcomed him very thoughtfully. He gave orders for the chef to cook as deliciously as possible. S.E. Roy personally brought the food to the table. The president suddenly asked him what was the purpose of buying his shares and why did he buy so much. At this point, everyone was stunned because they knew Croy had a lot of money. Of course, Croy could not say his intention to acquire Jenga Group. He lied that he bought it because he saw potential President Jang, and everyone enjoyed the food because it was delicious, so he ate it all at once. When finished eating, the chairman suddenly mentioned Croy's father. He advised Croy to give up and not confront him. He also threatened S.E. Roy that if you continued you will fail miserably. Hearing about his real father, S.E. Roy cannot hide his emotions. He does not hesitate to talk about his revenge plan. S.E. Roy vows to make Chairman JN and Jan Ju pay for killing his father. S.E. Roy even shouted angrily. His words made the atmosphere extremely tense. Chairman Jang was angry and wanted to respond to the end. ISO now knew how reckless and talented S.E. Roy was, so S.E. Roy also revealed that is just the first step of the plan to take over Jenga Group, and his card is his friend Ho Jin, who helped him do everything while he was in prison. It turned out that he was the person who was abused by Joan Won and that S.E. Roy stood up to protect. To repay kindness, Hoyne secretly managed finances and business for S.E. Roy because he majored in finance. Only in 10 years Ho Jin turned Southeast Roy's 100 million won into a huge sum of money. A few days ago they went to meet the CEO of Jenga Company. Roy proposed to cooperate with the overthrowing the director. President John then made her the new president of the group because S.E. Roy's father was also a person who was grateful to the director, so she also wanted to repay the favor, but the prerequisite was that she share must be larger than Chairman Jang's. A few days later they met again. Both sides shook hands and agreed to cooperate. The next day the director went to Chairman Jang's house to play chess. She advised Chairman Jang not to stubbornly hand it over the company to his son. He should choose a good person to lead the group. After the director left, Secretary Kim brought a few photos to President Jang which were evidence of Se Roy and the director working together. President Jang began to come up with a plan to cope, and Yeo's side began to have a different view of Se Roy. As smart as she was, but she didn't even guess that Seoi would be so good. Gansu is curious to ask what Se Roy's feud is like, but Yeo doesn't know, so Junwoo ran home to ask his father, but the president did not answer and cursed him for being incompetent, also working for his enemy. Hearing this, Junwoo felt humiliated and left. After suffering the insults from his father, he called Yeo to go out and confide in her. Jansu said he really liked Yeo, but Yeo said she would give him a chance if he stole the company from his father. This sentence made Junwoo stunned. When the two returned, they saw Se Roy carrying her backpack and leaving. Seeing that, Yeo immediately gave up all her work to follow him as best as she could. She stubbornly insisted on following Se Roy. Finding Yeo too cute, Se Roy agreed to let her follow him. The two got on a bus to a small countryside. On the bus, Se Roy recounted her life as harsh as hell. A little later, they went to the house of the former police officer investigating the accident that year. 10 years ago, he knew that the police chief had falsely accused Se Roy, but he couldn't do anything that day. He regretted it, so he resigned and went home to be with his wife. He regretted the unjust case, so he knelt down to apologize to Croy. He said that he would pay anything, even if it was his life, because his daughter was still young. He did not dare to confront President John. Seo did not blame him but only advised him to be brave and strong. That night it rained very heavily, so and Croy slept here. Eo suddenly said that as long as the police officer testifies, John Won will have to go to jail, which means that Chairman JN will be turned against the shareholders. This is the key for Se Roy to be able to overthrow Chairman JN. Look at the scar on the Se Roy rail. Eo knew he had gone through hard and miserable days, which made her love Se Roy even more. Eo burst into tears and promised herself to protect this man all her lives, but the enemy did not leave them alone to be happy. The next morning, the old owner announced that the house had been sold. They knew that the new owner had increased the rental price and the lease contract only had 6 months left, making everyone worried. Se Roy called the new landlord and wanted to negotiate. Unexpectedly, that person was Chairman Jang. Se Roy was surprised to find out that he was being played with again. ISO knew about it and was very angry and scolded Sua to negotiate. Se Roy went directly to meet President Jang. Roy lowered himself and begged President Jang to concession of premises. Of course, a dangerous person like him could not ignore it. He said that wherever Se Roy rented space in the future, he would buy it back there to make it impossible for Se Roy to do any more business. Roy continued to lower himself and ask what you wanted. He wanted Roy to kneel down and apologize to him. Roy got angry and said he was the one at fault. He said that the more you harmed me, the more I stronger. Then Se Roy made a strong declaration of war to President John. Then he coldly left. Se Roy went out and met Sua. She knew what happened and immediately asked the president to withdraw the decision to revoke the premises, but the chairman was upset and immediately kicked Sua out because the restaurant was about to close. The group went out to drink. When they left, Jonah apologized to Se Roy for the trouble his family had caused. Se Roy did not blame him and still very sympathetic to him. The other 4 people invited each other to the bar to dance. Unexpectedly, it was Tony's turn to be prevented from entering. Here there was a rule banning Africans. Tony asserted that he was Korean, but the security guard still wouldn't let him in. ESO said no one would believe what the black guy said, causing Tony to sadly leave immediately. The next morning, the bar was painted everywhere writing that they were the one racism. Everyone who saw this scene didn't know what else to say. John Soo confided in Yeo about his decision. He would quit his job according to his father's wishes to beg him to cede the premises. ISO heard that and was extremely grateful. Then John Soo resigned. Like that, the restaurant will no longer be troubled by Jenga Group. Of course, Se Roy did not agree. He did not want anyone to sacrifice for him, while Y enthusiastically supported. Seeing this, Se Roy immediately snatched up her management sign. He angrily said Isa was emotionless and not qualified to be a manager. She devoted herself to the restaurant but was scolded, so she also angrily argued back. Unexpectedly, Se Roy loudly scolded Iso he would not. She never exchanged feelings for benefits. Iso said she had given up her whole life for him, so even if he fired her she would still be the manager of the restaurant. Hearing this, Se Roy was extremely surprised. Se Roy decided to buy a house here for them to work. Iso saw more and more that Se Roy lived with gratitude. This changed her way of living. According to reason, she immediately ran to apologize. Junwoo, taking this opportunity, gonna confessed his love to Yo, but EO said he only liked Se Roy. Next, Iso posted an article about racism. The article received a lot of support and became hot. Iso also announced to everyone, if anyone touches Se Roy she will kill them all. When read this article, Tony came back. Iso promised to help him apply for Korean citizenship. Seeing Yayo change her life and become more emotional made everyone happy. Se Roy immediately gave her a restaurant management sign and was very proud of Yo. Only Jen ensued. Next to him felt sad. On the other hand, the secretary said that S.E. Roy had just bought a house in Itaewon for Chairman Jang, causing him to panic because Janga's shares had increased very high. S.E. Roy ordered all of these shares to be sold for a large profit so as not to be fooled by the chairman. Jang say Roy bought a fairly big house in Itaewon while the group was together renovating the new restaurant. Suddenly an old woman told Roy that this house was very unlucky. No boss had ever worked here without losing money and going bankrupt. After hearing this, everyone was a little confused. In order to help the new restaurant develop, he'll live stream on social platforms, thus helping the restaurant become much more famous. The president knew the key point to help S.E. Roy succeed, that is thanks to ISO. He sinisterly invited Yo to his house to meet. He let Yo attended the press conference of the Janga group. When the chairman was giving a speech about the company's orientation, Il raised his hand to speak. She deliberately asked the chairman if there was any chance for another brand to surpass Janga. The chairman angrily said that if he were still alive there would be no way, but Yo's boldness made a very strong impression with the chairman. As soon as Yo was about to leave, the secretary quickly called her into a private room to meet the chairman. Mr. Jang personally invited her to eat at a 5-star restaurant. The chairman knew that Yo had an IQ of 162 and extremely good, so he wanted to invite Yo to work for Janga Group with a salary 10 times higher than S.E. Roy's, but Yo flatly refused. She also said she could still work for him in the future, but only when she has grown Dan Bam to become strong. Hearing this sentence, the chairman was extremely interested. At this time, S.E. Roy was staying at Ho Jin's house because expanding his business caused him a tax headache. Ho Jin came up with a plan to establish a joint stock company, so S.E. Roy immediately met with a group and finally the group agreed to name the store chain Yuan Class, and the company name would be IC Joint Stock Company. At this time, the former police officer and his daughter also came for S.E. Roy case. In the past, the father let his daughter sit alone and then went out to talk to S.E. Roy. The girl saw the cute cat and immediately chased after. She accidentally got lost and everyone searched but couldn't find her. Luckily, fate helped her. Met director Kong. She lent her phone to call her father, then the police officer and S.E. Roy to pick up her child, but with their police skills the father quickly discovered that someone was following them. He suddenly turned around and caught sight of this guy and stole this camera. It turned out this guy was always lurking around to take pictures of director Kang's whereabouts. Needless to say, they knew it was a trick of the chairman, which means that the chairman is very cautious. When Chairman Jang saw Yeo's shop's advertisement for Eon Class, he saw that Y is really talented. Now he is worried not only because S.E. Roy but also Yo. The secretary also announced that his surveillance of Director K had been exposed, but the chairman did not panic and said to ignore her. Now the most important thing is to drag E come back to work for them. Hearing this made SUA extremely shocked. At the same time, the secretary said that the policeman was the one who provided food for Sroy. The president immediately ordered that the policeman be bribed. That night Seoe went to meet SUA was drinking in a romantic atmosphere. He said he liked SUA unexpectedly. The next morning when he came to the restaurant, ISO said that if he dated SUA she would quit the job. At the same time, the president called the policeman who provided food for Roy came to his house. Mr. Jang tempted him to give up Croy and sign a contract with Janga, but the past has taught the former policeman a lesson. Now he just wants to be a good example for daughter. So even though the chairman offered him an extremely lucrative contract, the former police officer still refused, saying he believed that Dan Bam would surpass Janga in the future. The president threatened that if he opposes him there is only a way to die. The police officer thought he was going to harm his daughter, so he held his hand tightly. He threatened the president again and said he was the police officer in the case 10 years ago. If there was any problem with his family he will turn the case over, making the chairman extremely worried. While his son Joan-won comes to find EO, Joan-won announced to everyone that he wanted to invite EO to work. EO asked him out for drinks, making S.E. Roy at home extremely worried. JN1 lured ISO into Yunga Group with a huge contract. The new position is the marketing director. At the same time he offered a salary of 250,000 WA a month, 50 times the current salary, making Yeo stunned, but he did not know that Yeo was extremely smart. She pretended to agree because admired him, then flattered this guy to cloud 9, tricking him into telling the whole truth about the car crash that killed S.E. Roy's father 10 years ago. Stupid Jane 1 just told it all, but it all happened were all recorded by Il. Jane and knew she was trapped in stealing her phone, but EA was faster. He was about to hit her when hot coffee was thrown in his face. She declared that anyone who dared to touch Croy would kill that person, but Ganon is not the average person. He chased after and grabbed Yeo and immediately gave her a slap. This guy forcibly demanded to steal the phone. Yeo was helpless and could only scream for help. People saw this and there were a lot of people around. Unexpectedly Joan-won held a handful of money and threw it in the air. Everyone was busy picking up money, so no one pay attention to them anymore. Thought you would easily have his phone stolen. Unexpectedly Immediately when was in danger, S.E. Roy came to the rescue, aying that ISO's face was injured. S.E. Roy was extremely angry and tried to hit Gun Onion. Luckily Ishio stopped Roy in time to avoid getting caught in his trap. As soon as the police were there, promptly took Gun away to thank Roy. Hugged EO. This was also the first time she feels so happy even though she was in pain. EO said the time had come. She posted the recording online, causing a stir in public opinion. This caused Jonga Group's shares to plummet miserably. Chairman Jang angry he beat his destructive son. Gunan also felt extremely humiliated when he was beaten. Director Khan what witnessed everything, knowing in her heart that he could not serve such an incompetent person in the future, so she immediately went to see S.E. Roy. ISO said because the stock price was falling and shareholders were in turmoil, so this is the opportunity to thoroughly take down Chairman Jang. But first the former police officer must testify that Gowan killed S.E. Roy's father. The next morning they went to the former police officer's house but didn't found him. He was frantically looking for his child. Director Kong discovered her sitting alone in a chair. It turned out that she knew her father had done wrong in the case 10 years ago, so he left home. Say Roy saw father and the daughter was very sentimental. He had to postpone asking them to testify. When he returned, ISO said that the second condition to take down Chairman Jang was when Chairman Jang stood up to defend Gonwan in a wrong way. At the same time, Chairman Jang also met with the lawyers to find a way to deal with it. SUA suggested that John Ju must be sent to prison to save the company. If Director Kong betrayed him, the chairman would be dismissed. Although the advice was very wise, she did not expect that Chairman Jang would refute it. He firmly affirmed that he would rather leave the company than leave his son. SUA quickly reported this news to Director Kong and Seo. Thinking everything went well, so Director Kong immediately held an internal meeting to propose the dismissal of Chairman Jang because he let his family's feelings seriously affect the company completely. Unaware that he had fallen into his trap, the next morning the shareholders meeting to remove the chairman took place. Indeed, during the meeting there was a rebellion. Mr. John suddenly told the whole truth about the case that year, agreeing to send his son to prison to save the company, causing the group's dismissal plan to completely collapse. Director Kong said realized that she had been deceived. At the same time, the chairman's driver took Gun to surrender. Seeing that, he quickly got out of the car and ran away, rushing all the way to where his father had a press conference. Gun and recognized his father sold himself out for the position of president of the company. The bitter son shed 2 tears and Mr. Jang left with an expressionless face, realizing that the plan had failed. S.E. Roy was extremely desperate. The chairman called Director Kong to sarcastically say a few sentences. Wanting to take me down seems very young and green. The first half underestimated a sinister old man like that too much. The president then demoted Mrs. Kong to be an employee of a small branch. This failure made her spirit go down. Now there is only hope for his fighting efforts, say Roy. The next day the trial took place. John Won killed S.E. Roy's father, so he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Even so, Chairman Jang was still very comfortable because to him the company was everything. After this, Seoi immediately went to his father's grave. It took him 11 years to catch the person who harmed his father and pay for crime. S.E. Roy offered his father a glass of wine like the last time they drank together. Really, the wine is still as bitter as his heart. When he lost his father back with Dan Bam, John Soo decided to quit his job because his brother was in prison, so he wanted to go home to get his inheritance because Yo had said she would give him a chance if he takes over Yunga. John Won is currently in prison. Soo comes to announce that his father has revoked all his shares, making Gun Onion crazy. He did not expect his father to be so evil, and Gunu also returned to see his father. He said he would listen to everything his father said as long as he inherited Yunga. He told his father that he would build Yunga to become straw. Seeing the ambition of the son, the president was very happy. He immediately transferred the job to Sua, forcing her to train John Soo to become the best at the restaurant. The chef had plastic surgery to become beautiful. When preparing to cook for the show, Tony was distracted, so he mistakenly put curry powder in the dish. Hai quickly noticed it and screamed loudly. Unexpectedly, this mistake created a delicious new flavor. As a result, Dan Bam's curry dish won the first prize, which helped raise Dan Bam's reputation very quickly. Investors came looking to expand the Dan Bam brand. This was a great opportunity to create a franchise brand. ISO naturally realized that this was great. She compiled a book about the characteristics of Dan Bam, ready to invite investors in franchise. Unexpectedly, S.E. Roy thinks now is not the time. While Yo said that having someone invest is a golden opportunity, if they open one by one they will never catch up with Jonga. Resting in a heated argument between the two, however, Ho Jin also saw Yo plan is very correct. A man, while on this side investors are constantly calling to urge Isel if she is slow they will invest in another restaurant, causing ISO a huge headache. She dragged Croy to the rooftop, nagging about opening a chain of restaurants. Upon hearing this, Roy no longer hesitated. He decided to take a risk, this time with EO. The two of them were completely unaware that they had fallen into Chairman Jang's trap. They immediately came to meet that talented investor. He appreciated that Dan Bom had a very talented manager. Taking that opportunity. S.E. Roy firmly offered $5 billion for the franchise. ISO was very hesitant but did not expect the investor agreed very quickly. This news became hot, thus attracting many other investors to call. 3 people could not answer the phone on the first day they received more than $10 billion in investment. The number of people registering to open a shop has reached more than 50 people. They immediately opened a representative office, both doing business and franchising training. The evening when the group returned, they suddenly saw an injured old lady. The group rushed her to the hospital for treatment. Unexpectedly, this was Tony's grandmother. Tony showed him a photo of the missing father who turned out to be her son. She cried and said loudly that his father had passed away in a traffic accident many years ago. Tony tearfully received his grandmother back. The next day the food competition came to the second round. The restaurants were frantically cooking on the program. Hyeni cooked the restaurant's signature soft tofu soup and Yoonga cooked fermented soybeans. Jan Soo ate both dishes, so he knew Jongga would lose. As expected, Dan Bam continued to win the contest. Everyone in S.E. Roy's group couldn't hide their joy, while Sua's group was very depressed after the competition. Say invited the two of them to eat. Sua took Kroy's arm and walked first. Isel was upset and came up to interrupt the two people. Everyone had so much fun drinking for a while that they wanted to play the truth game. ESO was unlucky enough to be the opening act. Gano asked if he won Jenga would she love him because she promised. ISO had to agree to this. The next lucky person was S.E. Roy. Squan asked S.E. Roy and Sua what their relationship was. Unexpectedly, S.E. Roy said he liked her. The answer hurt Iso's heart. Gano suddenly asked, what do you consider Yi to be? Sadly, the answer is a younger sister. Hearing this, Yeo couldn't help but cry. She sacrificed everything for him and now feels bitter because so embarrassed. ESO quickly stood up and left under High's urging. S.E. Roy quickly stood up and chased Eel. Isel was hurt and couldn't hide her heart anymore. With tears in her eyes, she kept saying, I love you more than anything in the world. In the past 2 years I have given up everything to bet on you, including dropping out of college or leaving my mother at home. Thinking S.E. Roy was easy to touch and accepted love, Eel unexpectedly only received a harsh rejection. Both heartbroken and humiliated, in the end Yeo left in the cold snowy winter the person she promised to protect with her whole life. Now he's cruel to her again. Y is in extreme pain, sitting in the middle of the street crying and can't stop returning to Yoonga Company. The president was very angry because they lost 2 rounds of cooking competition in a row. He ordered that if they lost in the final round, Gonsu would definitely never have the right to inherit. Listen to this sentence. Gunso immediately asked his father to give him the program. He affirmed that he would win the final round. After the contest, Dan Bam was more crowded than before, but Yeo decided to take a break for a while so that S.E. Roy could distinguish clearly, understand what true feelings are. Knowing that Yeo quit her job, Yan Su quickly informed his father. President Jang realized this was a golden opportunity indeed. The next morning when S.E. Roy came to the office, there was no one. All left investors simultaneously texted to withdraw capital. This caused the entire S.E. Roy group to fall into crisis. At least they spent more than $1 billion on the recent campaign. It turned out that the other investor was Chairman Jang, installed to trick Dan Bam. 50 stores all came to Dan Bam to demand compensation. They were extremely angry with Sawi because everyone lost money to open a restaurant. Sua followed the president's order to bring a vase of flowers. Above was a message, congratulate S.A. Roy returns to the golden stream. Reading this sentence made S.E. Roy angrily shout. He said that you can cancel the contract if you want. I will have enough money to compensate everyone, but the most important business is trust, so you trust. Please continue to support according to the schedule. The words certainly appeased the store owners, but now where the money will come from to continue, S.E. Roy does not know. Sua advised S.E. Roy to run away and living happily with her, while SEO wanted to give up. ESO called. She encouraged him and promised to fight with S.E. Roy to the end. As expected, she regained S.E. Roy's spirit. The next day Yeo returned back to work. The important thing right now is to find a new investor. According to the list, they saw a 70-year-old real estate tycoon. Surprisingly, that was Tony's grandmother. She was even an enemy. The godmother helped President Jang develop the old lady, then went to Dan Bam with Director K. She asked if he needed any help. Unexpectedly, S.E. Roy was stubborn and did not want to open his mouth to ask for her help. The grandmother was angry and scolded that you for having too much pride and not knowing how to humble yourself. She said you would fail because of that stubbornness. Then she angrily stood up and left. Director Kong was disappointed with S.E. Roy, so he also left. In the evening he looked back at the staff who were hard work day and night. Say Roy understood that they were suffering because of his high pride. Thinking of this, he decided to call Tony to make an appointment to meet his grandmother. Tony informed her that she had arrived on Jeju Island. S.E. Roy immediately called D. Unexpectedly, the grandmother next to her grabbed the phone and started talking. She kept exclaiming that Kroy was an idiot. Kroy asked her to invest, but she made a condition that they must win the final of the best restaurant contest. Kroy promised he would definitely win this final round, but life is not like a dream. Guna here also wants to win the contest to become the heir. He knows Dan Bam won the previous 2 rounds thanks to Chef Hyoni. So suddenly a dirty plan came up in his heart. Jong-soo discussed with Sua that they would announce that Chef Hyoni is transgender the next day. Se Roy along with Chef Hyoni to the competition. Indeed, the news of Hy's transgender was all over the internet. Squan quickly showed this news to the 2 people. Everyone in the studio was talking about this, making Hyoni feel offended, so she turned around and left. Of course, Jun-soo was the one who bribed the journalist to publish this article. Sua was surprised to see Jong-soo not ignore any trick on this side. Hy ran into the women's restroom but was chased away. Then Se Roy found her back in the men's restroom. He confided from the bottom of his heart to give her courage. If you give up, everyone will trample on you even more. You have to win the contest to win the hatred in everyone's hearts. Listening this word, Hy has regained her confidence. Inside the studio, thought Hy gave up. Jong-soo asked the program to start without Dan Bam participating, but suddenly Hy opened the door and walked in with a very confident look. Jong-soo started to feel dizzy. The program still continued filming with Hy's return living up to everyone's expectations. She created the ultimate dish. Everyone was anxiously waiting for the results. The judges declared Hyoni the final winner. An indescribable surge of happiness. Hyun's spectacular return helped Dan Bam win. Strangely, President Jang knew his son was playing tricks on Hyun but did not scold him but praised the son knows to use tricks. Just a bigger ambition is enough to inherit. At this moment ISO came to the company and hit Gon-soo. She hoped he would regain consciousness, but Jonna had now truly become evil. As long as he could win Janga to love her, he was willing to do anything. ISO also was helpless against this jerk. She ran back to meet Sawi. It was true that only Sui could bring her happiness. Because they won the contest, they went to meet the grandmother to sign an investment contract. This time Sroy is also very determined. He wants to develop the restaurant to reach the whole world, not just in Korea. The news that Dan Bam received an investment of 30 billion won flooded the internet, making Gunna sad. He asked how did Sua make Sui collapse. In his heart now there is only one thing to harm Se Roy. His father also realized this, so he agreed to let him attend the leadership meeting. He directly announced to everyone that Jong-soo would be the heir to Jenga. Jonna, thanks to his despicable tricks, was quickly had Hy appreciate the news of Jong-soo's inheritance in the newspaper made his brother in prison restless. He frantically practicing to one day return. Time has passed 4 years. Se Roy's IC company has grown extremely strong and Yeo has also become extremely beautiful. Se Roy is now the general director of dozens of small companies. During the meeting the leaders presented many problems that needed to be solved. Unexpectedly Yeo used his intelligence in just a few words to help the other directors agree. Gano also returned after 4 years of studying abroad. He confidently stood in front of the board of directors to present his plan. He said he would buy a cheap road and upgrade it like Itaewon, push up the land price and then sell it all to get rid of the goods. This deal is expected to earn at least a few hundred billion. The chairman immediately agreed after hearing it. This showed that Jong-soo had a very strategic vision. Mr. Jang appointed him to destroy SCO's corporation and then inherit. At this time his eldest son Jun-won was also released from prison, but Chairman JK's condition is very bad at this time. He often gets dizzy and faints. The doctor said that the chairman has terminal pancreatic cancer. The cruel Ganu only wants his father to die so he can inherit. John-won, after being released from prison, visited his father. 4 years of practice helped him become calm. Jensu bluntly told his father before he died to choose an heir because he knew he had an advantage over his older brother, but Jen-won did not give up. He said that in the past 4 years he had memorized all of his father's ideals and said that Janga must be given to him. Over here Se Roy was meeting Soa for dinner, but Ho Jin called urgently so he had to rush to leave. When he got there he scolded Se Roy for being so stupid. He is the president of IC but is dating the director of a rival company. Have you forgotten about your father's feud? It turns out Ho Jin is worried because Jun-won has been released from prison. Moreover, President JN only lived for a few more months. Hearing this sentence Seoi couldn't believe his ears. He immediately picked up the phone and called President John. He said, I really didn't want you to die. You had to live to compete with me. It's interesting that the only person who wants the president to continue to live is Se Roy. The words made Chairman Jang laugh happily. Sroy then returned to the company and saw Yeo sleeping tiredly on the table. He immediately took off his jacket and put it on, suddenly waking up ISO. She felt very touched and Croy suddenly felt confused. The next morning everyone had a meeting to discuss Janga's inheritance. If Jong-soo becomes the chairman on a stretcher it will be dangerous for them, so it is very necessary for them to stop this. Yeo comes up with a plan. First they must remove Gon-soo as CEO, then put her in his place because Yeo also has shares. The plan was perfect and everyone immediately agreed. When only Se Roy and Y were left to discuss the plan, Sua suddenly called to invite Se Roy to dinner, but Se Roy refused because he was too busy. Yeo saw that and said some jealous words. Unexpectedly Sroy was upset and emphasized that he did not consider her a woman. This hurt Yeo greatly. Seeing Yeo sad, Sei suddenly felt guilty but did not admit it in front front of her, Eo immediately understood. After hearing that, this proved that he had begun to have feelings for her on this side. Chairman Jang also knew about Kroy's group's plan. He immediately thought of a way to deal with the deposed director. ISO's side went to meet the shareholders of Janga Group every day. She devoted all her energy to convincing them to take her side, realizing that ISA was so good most of them really liked it, but because she worked so hard that her nose bled while he was working hard. Say Roy was going to meet Sua. She asked him if he still liked her. At this time ISO walked in and saw two people. She's so disappointed in Se Roy and immediately left. Se Roy wanted to chase her, but Sua selfishly held him back. Only later did Se Roy stand up to chase. It was too late. ESO sadly returned home to her mother. The next day the Janga Group shareholders meeting took place. Yeo was sick but still struggled until she fainted from exhaustion, so the meeting took place in Yeo's absence. As a result, her appointment as CEO was also rejected. President Jan's side completely prevailed, but Se Roy did not care and rushed to the hospital to visit Yeo. She quickly came up with a plan B. Seeing that Yeo was too enthusiastic, Seoi asked her to take a break or she would be fired. After saying that, Se Roy left. Squan saw that and immediately chased after him. Say Se Roy too stupid, saying he was still blind like Sua was a mistake. Those words made Southeast Roy gradually wake up. Seeing the necklace that ESO liked, he immediately went to buy it for her. Unexpectedly, when he returned to the hospital, he did not have the courage to give it to her, just stood outside. At the same time, Gunnan came to meet the society boss. He threw a backpack of money on the table to hire someone to harm S. Roy's group. S. Roy's side was busy taking over Yeo's work too. Again, when he opened Yeo's document drawer, he accidentally read her entire diary plus the picture Yeo drew of him. He partly understood Yeo's love for him. He suddenly realized he also loved her very much. Se Roy immediately rushed to the hospital. He drove quickly to confess his love to ISO. ISO in the hospital also discovered the necklace that Se Roy gave her. She was happy when know that Se Roy had feelings for her. At this moment the fake doctor walked in and said it was time for the injection. When Se Roy arrived at the hospital, he only saw a messy room. Someone sent him a picture of Yi being kidnapped and an anonymous message asking Se Roy to come alone to save Yi. Se Roy drove like crazy trying to get there as quickly as possible. Gunu saw that something was wrong and chased after him. Moments later Se Roy arrived at the rendezvous point on the road through the forest. Seeing Gunu coming to Junonian came up with the idea to take down his younger brother as well. He immediately ordered a car to rush out and hit his younger brother. Seeing that Se Roy rushed to save him and was knocked down the mountain. When he was about to die, he suddenly thought about Yeo, so regretful that he had not yet accepted his love for her. Jun Soo saw that and quickly called an ambulance, but Jun Won's brother still sent someone to assassinate him. Luckily Gunu was able to call Squan in time to inform Squan. They knocked Gunu unconscious and threw him in the same place as Yi. So Jinan outside thought that Se Roy was dead, but the boss still sent someone to check. Luckily the emergency room had arrived, so they quickly left. They took Kroy to the hospital in an unconscious state with extremely weak signs of life. Everyone was very worried because they didn't know where Yi was. The former police officer saw the camera and immediately knew it was a kidnapping. Kroy's phone still has anonymous messages, but now that she tells the police they might kill her, Squan decides to go deal with them himself. While John Won is still torturing the two people, he threatened Yeo, making John Soo very angry. Yeo pretended to be scared and miserable, but as soon as John Won left, she immediately regained her composure and untied herself. At the same time, Squan went to the boss that John Won hired. He begged the boss, please stop. After all, they were in prison for 10 years with Se Roy, but they didn't cooperate and beat him, so Squan took this opportunity to call the police and successfully brought them all police station. ESO worked hard to cut the rope until morning. She quickly untied Gon Soo so that the two of them could join forces to escape. At the same time, Se Roy was still in a coma. In the dream, the father and son were at the bridge leading to the other side of the world. The father said, if you have a hard time, go with me. Se Roy emotionally hugged his father, but he said he owed ISO too much, so he couldn't go yet. After said that, Se Roy stepped back from the bridge. Then suddenly Se Roy woke up. His strong desire to live pulled him out of death, but Sui cried for a long time. Being separated from his father was truly painful. It's impossible to describe. At this time, Gunnan was also calling his father, but in contrast to Se Roy, he continuously blamed his father. He said it was all because of his father, so now he had no way back. He did this in order to take revenge for what his father had treated him 5 years ago, and at the same time harm the person who caused him and his father to separate. Jan Won conveniently said the location where he locked the two people he challenged his father to come. He will release the hostages. Chairman J almost collapsed after hearing this. It was true retribution for what he taught his son in the past. After speaking, Dunwan returned to the detention place. Dun Soo ambushed and suddenly beat him. Isa wanted to beat him more to feel secure and run away, but Gunna stopped her, so the two people just left. Subjectively, they ran outside and tried to get in a car to escape, but before they could run, the gangsters shined shined their headlights to block them. The boss and Ganon appeared and surrounded the two people on this side. Se Roy just woke up and immediately wanted to go save Ijio. Seeing that, Soa stopped him too. Drastically, Sroy immediately declared that he loved Io after saying that he was determined to go save Yayo even though he knew he might die. Se Roy received news that the chairman knew where Yeo was captured. He immediately went to Chairman Jang's house with injuries. Se Roy threatened to report to the police if Chairman Jang did not say where the hostages were. Unexpectedly, the old man was not easy to threaten. He forced Se Roy to kneel in exchange for Yeo's life. Se Roy would rather die than kneel, but for Yayo he gave up all his pride and knelt down. The old man saw that and laughed like crazy. In the end, his greatest wish was fulfilled, but in return he sold his son and wrote down the location on paper. Seeing this, Cyro stood up and declared that he was no longer my opponent, the one who sold his son in exchange for his opponent's kneeling. It's all so despicable. You don't deserve to be my enemy anymore. After saying that, Cyro snatched the address and this man then left, leaving the old man extremely angry. On this side, the gangsters were surrounding and preparing to kill two people. ESO stepped back and grabbed the shovel and gonna pick up the iron bar at his feet. ESO called on the count of 3 to rush in to fight, but as soon as she finished counting, she dropped the shovel and run away, leaving Gonsu behind to try to hold them off, because Junsu likes Eo. Junu used the remaining strength to hold them back. Just as the boss was about to finish Junwon stopped him. A little conscience left so that he did not harm his brother. They then got in the car and chased Yo, who was running hard. Right when she was about to be stabbed, Yayo promptly ran into the field. The boss let his two juniors chase while he and Gonwon drove to block the road. Yo ran to the road in agony when their car rushed over. At this moment, Se Roy also arrived. He stepped on the accelerator and accelerated at full speed straight into the enemy's car. Croy's car was better, so the two of them got out safely. ISO happily ran up and hugged Croy just as Ganon and the boss were also coming. Se Roy begged if the boss could withdraw for the sake of previous relationship. Didn't expect this guy didn't feel like that. Seeing that, Squan decided to stay and block the way, letting the two people run first. He used all his strength to quickly defeat them, leaving only the boss to fight fiercely. John 1 jumped into the car to chase Croy. After the two people ran for a while, Sroy was in pain and couldn't run. He stopped and quickly said he loved ISO. Just as the two of them hugged each other in the middle of the street, June 1 accelerated the car and drove towards it. Se Roy got angry and took a brick and threw it straight at the car, forcing him to stop. Se Roy told Yo to go ahead and report to the police and he himself would stay and fight. Gun. June 1's 4 years of training in prison is different now, and Se Roy is exhausted after the incident, so he was beaten a lot by Gun 1. The boss and his juniors were defeated by Senon, but the honest guy spared his life, only hoping the boss would be a good person. On this side, Se Roy thought he was dead, as the thought of saving Yeo gave him more strength. Se Roy stood up again, making Gunnan also admire. He used all his strength to defeat Guan, but he himself collapsed due to exhaustion. Just then Yell returned with the police. The two happily hugged each other. The next morning, SUA submitted all evidence of Janga's crime to the police. Immediately, Chairman Jang's house was ransacked. Investigation. The whole group was investigated for embezzlement and bribery. Chairman Jang wanted to admit all the blame because he was about to die anyway, but the secretary said the partner restaurants all wanted to cancel the contract. The situation was this caused Janga to go bankrupt and have to sell the company. Chairman Jan heard this and panicked because he was about to lose everything. He asked for help everywhere but could not. The chairman bitterly realized that now only Se Roy could save him. Jan 1 was in prison on charges of failed arrest and murder and had a criminal record that put him in prison for life. Se Roy this side also woke up in the hospital. The first thing he did was hug the person he loved, but Yeo's mother was extremely angry after knowing everything, so she scolded Se Roy for a while at the hospital. Unexpectedly, Se Roy only said I'm sorry, which made Yeo's mother happy and Yayo was equally happy. They happily left the hospital to go home together, but as soon as they arrived at the restaurant they saw the president. John came here to entertain him, so Se Roy personally went into the kitchen. He personally brought it up and invited President JN to enjoy the dish. The taste was so delicious that it made him have a different view of Sroy abilities. Croy now announced that he would merge Janga into his company, at the same time removing the name Janga permanently. President Jang, with an extremely sad face, suddenly stood up, suddenly knelt down, and sincerely apologized. With Se Roy, he did evil deeds all his life, but at the last moment he turned around. He asked Sroy to forgive this poor old man, and then he bowed his head to the ground. Sroy had hoped that Chairman Jang would kneel down, but now he was not happy at all. He was moved to forgive him everything, but the merger would still have to proceed. The chairman of two started a business with empty hands, so a large corporation in the end, because he still lost everything because he had no heart. Then the meeting to merge Yunga into Southeast Roy's company was held. Se Roy naturally held the position of president. He received complete support from the shareholders. John Su's side, after Southeast Roy's life-saving grace, he respected Se Roy even more. He gave up his ambition from then on and took a new path. Se Roy went from being a young man with two empty hands. His father was assassinated and lost while he was in prison, but with a good heart and an unyielding will in the end they gained all the happiness and wealth. Croy and Yeo went out all that day. Forever later he had enough courage to hold Ji's hand. He gave her a very passionate kiss. They lived a very happy life together. The movie ends here. If you find it interesting, please subscribe to the channel to watch the next videos. Goodbye and see you in the next videos.